it's important to know whether these ideas have been around for a long time, and that the strategies for getting people to think about these ideas have been around for a long time, because we really are coming back full circle into a space in which we've got more science and more evidence and more willingness to play with these ideas, that we're back in the idea promotion space. And then pushing again forward to say, okay, as people are really getting these ideas, how do we basically help them bring them into key places of influence so that they can get to impact? And your tools have moved along the way. So let's fast forward up from the early Ready by 21 working group or learning group, which I know sort of brought that diverse set of folks together. And it gave us an opportunity to see how people in different settings, in different systems, were using these ideas and moving them. That let us come back to say, okay, we think we have enough of these intermediaries, these out of school time youth development intermediaries, that it's time to really push these ideas about quality up to the city level. And so we started Quality Counts. And with Quality Counts came the partnership with High Scope Educational Research Foundation, which then became the Weicker Center. So those who joined us last time, that commitment to really come in and help communities think not just about how to build these program networks, but how to move the idea of quality as a key part of what a community needs to be committed to. So yes, we need quantity, but we also need quality. And that's what was happening in that space. But as we saw that happen, this bigger space became sort of the Ready by 21 national partnership, as communities were ready to put children's cabinets, coordinating bodies, they were ready to sort of set these tables for this cross-sector, cross-system planning. You saw enough similarities in what people were doing and enough similarities in who was sitting at the table, even though different people may be convening the table, different groups might be convening the table, that it felt like it was time to go have conversations with some of the national organizations and get them to figure out with us how to take this to scale. So take us forward quickly into the Ready by 21 national partnership and how that sort of that work intersected with collective impact, because it came along in that same time.
Yeah, it did, and the Ready by 21 idea is kind of going through all these initiatives. We had the Ready by 21, as you mentioned, Quality Counts, and then Ready by 21 Southeast Challenge, which we put together with a combination of really sort of idea and membership partners, United Way, ASA, School Administrators Association, at that time, Corporate Voices for Working Families. We tried to think through like those national partners that were connecting with people locally, that were the people that were most often asked to be around these tables. And we're still hearing this, we're hearing the same things then that we're hearing now. It is the how do you get things kind of organized in your own space to be able to bring it to the table and connect with other partners to be able to make these connections happen, and have definitely been hearing from places this year that it's some of the same kinds of challenges. The work there really did focus a lot on how do you get the relationship sort of more structured for being able to manage change over time. One of those key components of the planning and partnership work that you talked about at the top of the hour. How do you work with the range of leaders, but how do you actually structure and think about the planning and work that they can do together? So it sort of ended up, while we had been working on this for a while, it sort of coincided with, and we ended up kind of riding the collective impact wave in terms of that, and looking, and a lot of the collective impact was started with a cradle to career, but a K-12 focused. And so many places, again, it was as this wave is coming through, how are we really helping to support the range of places, spaces, systems, settings in a community to be a part of that conversation, to be seen in that conversation, and really support in many places coming to more of a different ways they call it, a youth master planning kind of approach. I see Maggie on the call here from New Orleans, and the work that they just did this last year there around this kind of how do you get the range of players in the community to the table in an overall game plan. Although I'd say there in New Orleans, what you all have done is had more of as much of a master youth engagement process with young people helping to lead the work as a youth master planning process. It's sort of a both and. But bringing this up through the collective impact space, I think that the lessons that we learned along the way is what we'd hear from places. It's much about building the relationships and the ways of working together, as it is the structures. And sort of some of the lessons learned is sometimes the structures could become too top heavy and become more about their operation themselves, and to kind of guard against that. But at the same time, realizing that having somebody, like having the backbone to help make these efforts move forward is also critically important. So the leaders in the effort are not just sitting around a kitchen table at 10 o'clock at night trying to figure out how all the pieces fit together. So it was really trying to think about how to be more nimble over time, I think, is what these things that a lot of the places that have had these partnerships, the shift has been a little bit from just the longer range planning, certainly in this last year, is how the relationships that we've built by being around the same tables, being in the same rooms, being on the same screens, helped us to respond to the fact that our communities change, the lives of our young people change. And if we're here, it's not about a 5-year plan. It's about how are we responding and improving and learning with each other as things emerge and evolve and change.
So that message that I think sort of jarred a lot of us from that first FSG article about collective impact, which was basically the message of, we went out to look for partnerships to see if they had an impact, and we couldn't find very many. So we see a lot of plans sitting on shelves, but we don't really see a lot of partnerships that have been able to sort of push these ideas through to really implement at scale to get to impact. And I think that lesson is one that you really sort of brought in to say, how do we do that? How do we not just—
what are the nuts and bolts? We did these institutes for years with United Way about the nuts and bolts of collective impact. How do you really train to that? There are specific, it takes big picture thinking, but there are specific skills that you can develop and support along the way. And so really did those trainings around that. I think the other piece around it is it's back to changing the odds. It's why it's what we used to talk about as the denominator problem. That if you just go in and you say, what often would have this experience with some of the opportunity youth coalitions, if we're going in and just adding up, as well as others, if we're adding up everything, all the young people that we get to in terms of who our providers are reaching right now, invariably it would be 15 to 20% of the actual numbers in that community that were sort of the target population. And that really flipped the conversation for folks. If you're just adding up, if your numerator is just who you're reaching already, you're not at all getting to the challenge of all the young people that are facing these challenges in our community. So how do you flip that? And I think those are the lessons from that work carry forward. And again, they're things that we're seeing today. People are trying to say not just who do we already get to, but who in our communities have disconnected, how do we re-engage? What can we do to kind of learn together about how to do that work more effectively?